Hello and welcome to a brand new evening episode of Fractured Light Uncovered, presented here on YouTube by David's Beauty Bin. I just want to start by saying thank you for being here with me on this late Friday evening. And on that note, it is actually a Friday evening. I'm sitting in the same room I used to sit in a few years ago when I lived in this very same house before. Same energy, same quiet. And out of nowhere, I get hit with this feeling. This feeling of, am I missing out on something right now, tonight? Not because anything is actually happening around me or in the surrounding neighborhood, but because it feels familiar. I look out the window and my brain immediately starts doing what it does. Running in circles, backpedaling, thinking about people from my past. Imagine what they might be doing, where they might be, who they might be with. You know, I actually have a lyric in a new song that I'm going to be releasing soon. And the lyric is, my OCD is circling. I feel like it's gone viral. And that is so on brand for this concept tonight. At this point in my evening, when this is happening, my brain just runs with it. They're probably out having a great time tonight, living their life, moving forward. Maybe they're at a movie. Maybe they're having dinner with someone. Who knows? My brain loves to travel with these ideas. And for a second, it actually feels real. Like I've slipped back into something, some older version of my life, without even realizing it. But then I pause. And this 5 to 10 minute window of time ends. And I start doing a little reality check. And I'm like, wait, hold up. Does this even make sense right now? Logistically, time zones, timing, circumstances. None of it really lines up in a way that supports the story my brain is trying to build. And that's when it kind of cracks, shatters, fractures, if you will. Not because I forced myself to feel better, but because I realized something really, really simple. I'm not reacting to reality. I'm reacting to a story my brain is creating in real time. A version of life that isn't actually happening. And that's really what today's episode is about. These moments where our minds create something that feels emotionally true, but isn't grounded in what's real and what's actually happening. And I call this idea echoes of a timeline I left behind. And strangely enough, I've actually seen this pattern in myself before. There was a time a few years ago where I used to check this guy Trevor's Twitter account on the occasional Friday night. Not for any real reason, just the habit of kind of being on social media and clicking around, just kind of unintentionally comparing things without even realize that I was doing it. And I remember seeing a post where he was just at home with his dog and his roommate. Just a normal night. And what's funny is, in my head, I had already built this idea that he was out doing something that was better than what I was doing. Now, here's the kicker. I was literally out that night myself. I was out. I was out at a movie. Doing something real. Living my very own life and moving myself forward. And that's when it hit me. The story I had built about his life, it wasn't even real. It was just my brain filling in gaps again. And the crazy part is, it felt real at the time. That's the part that always gets me. Because in the moment, your brain doesn't present it as a guess. It presents it like a conclusion. Like, this is what's happening. But it's not what's happening. It's just what I imagined was happening in that specific scenario. And that's the same exact thing that happened to me this evening. Different person, different setting, but it was still the same mechanic. My brain sees a familiar setup. Friday night. Quiet room. Old environment. And it starts generating stories. Like, people are out doing something better than me. Life is happening somewhere else right now. I'm not a part of it. But none of that is actually based on anything that I know for sure. It's an emotional assumption filling space in silence. And when I slow it all down, and actually look at it logistically and logically, it doesn't really hold up. Time zones don't match what I'm thinking in my head. Circumstances don't match. Even basic context doesn't match. Who eats dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon? In these moments, it just feels like these things are happening. And that's where the shift happens. Not shutting the thought down, but realizing it was never really a situation to begin with. It was just a thought that temporarily felt like one. And holding on to these fantasies only confuses us. And I think that's really what this episode is about at its core. Noticing when the mind starts filling in gaps that aren't actually there. Because I think we've all had moments where something felt like it meant something. Or like maybe we were missing something. Only to realize that was not ever the case. At this point, I would like to open this conversation up to you guys. And I'd be curious if you have ever experienced anything like this as well. If there's ever been a moment where your mind built a story up that turned out to be completely different from reality. Let me know in the comments. And I really appreciate you being here and sitting with the unpleasantness that can be the human mind sometimes with me. Because sometimes the thoughts that feel the most real aren't facts at all. This is Fractured Light Uncovered. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me this evening.